Still the breakfast in Plus TV Africa, and for our first major topic right here, we look at the attorney's destruction of registration booths and carting away the conference bag. We have a guest who joins the conversation. We introduce him in no time. But Lagos for the past 6 days has been a buzz as the city has witnessed a convergence of lawyers from all over the country for the 2022 Annual General Conference for the Nigerian Bar Association. That's the NBA. The NBA Annual General Conference, AGG, has over the years been known to be the largest gathering of lawyers anywhere in the world. And this year's conference has been themed bold transition and has already featured bold conversation, particularly surrounding the 2023 elections. The opening ceremony of the conference, which held on August the 22nd, 2022, had Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, author of the popular Hibiscus, Half of a Yellow Sun, among others, delivering a keynote speech. But there was a technical session which came after the opening ceremony that attracted most attention, in particular the presidential candidates session, where presidential candidates of the major political parties in the 2023 election spoke on democratic transition in the 21st century Nigeria, 2023 and beyond. While Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party and Peter Obi of Labour Party were present, Rabiu Kwankwaso of the New Nigerian People's Party and Bola Tinubu of the All Progressive Congress were noticeably absent, with the latter being represented by his running mate, Kashima Shettima. We're glad to have joined us this morning in the studios to discuss all the developments at the NBA, the AGC conference. Our guest, he's a legal practitioner in Nyekwere. Prince, he's a chairman or immediate past chairman, Port Harcourt branch of the NBA, a member of the National Executive Committee of the NBA. Thank you, Prince, for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. So let's talk about it. I mean, so far, how has the conference been?
It's been good. We thank God for all that is happening in Lagos and all that happened.
You're beaming with so much smile.
In the conference because I know you journalists, lawyers destroy banks and everything is making the wave. But so far, so good. The conference has been good.
So let's even talk. Let's talk about the theme for this year's, conference. If you look at the theme, it's talking about, democracy, the transition, and the elections 2023. What really inspired the theme of this conference, being that you're also a member, a core member of the NBA?
Yeah, the theme for this year is bold transition. Every 2 years, NBA is like a company that sacks each chief executive every 2 years. Every 2 years, we'll have our election. And we had our election on the 16th of July. By tomorrow, we'll be inaugurating a new National Executive Committee of the NBA, led by, for now, we'll call him President-elect, President-designate YC Mekau. And we took that privilege to also look into the future, knowing that Nigerians will also be transiting by 2023, and we have to put that conversation on the front burner for the benefit of lawyers and for the benefit of the general public of Nigeria, so that come 2023, we should be able to make an informed decision, just like NBA has made an informed decision in electing YC Mekau, Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
But another thing that stands out, with that conference is also the topic which, presidential candidates are expected to speak on, or they have spoken on, and it talks about democracy, really. I would like to understand what inspired that particular, conversation, the thoughts that it's been following from the theme of the conference, to the topics that this candidate is supposed to talk about. What really, because this is really like the first time, your conference is experiencing this kind of presence of key holders, especially when we're looking at 2023 elections.
Yes, let's be honest with ourselves. Nigeria is not as it ought to be. We are at our lowest ebb. What is happening in Nigeria in terms of insecurity, in terms of our naira almost being worthless, has never happened before. And we are going to have another round of election come 2023. All of us know the problem of Nigeria. What is the solution? And that is what we wanted the presidential candidate to come and tell us. Call a primary school pupil today. He will analyze all the problems. What is the solution? What is the way out of the woes that we find ourselves? And that is what we want the president. Enough of rhetorics. We need action. So, what is the action plan? Party A, PDP, what is your action plan? APC, what is your action plan? SDP, what is your action plan? And of course, there is no how we can get all the presidential candidates come to speak to us. And in terms of space and what we have. And we invited the named presidential candidates, the front runners, come share with us what is your plan. And of course, MBA is a platform. We should also be able to analyze what they have told us. So in our own various conversations, in our various branches, in our states and everything, we should also be able to reach out to members of the public and give them these programs. And MBA is not a political party. We are not for PDP, APC, SDP, but based on that plan, we can present the plan, simplify it for the general public so that they will make their decision. So that was actually what informed the bold transition and the conversation that followed thereafter.
But we also know that out of the the forerunners, as it's been put out, there were 4 of them. Invitation was sent to 4 of these forerunners, but it was just 2 that honored this invitation or were available or confirmed the availability. I mean, I'm just saying, however we want to look at it. So you have the likes of Atiku and Peter Obi. But what does the association make of this? The fact that out of 4, only 2 honored, the invitation of the MBA.
An invite, you are entitled to reject or honor an invite. Ahmed Bola Tinubu sent his vice presidential candidate, his running mate. He's entitled to do that. Even Kwankwaso was invited, but he said he's otherwise engaged, and his vice presidential candidate was out of the country, so he couldn't send him. We owe it not against any of the presidential candidates that did not honor the invitation. We're actually presenting a platform for them to come tell Nigerians what you are going to do, because 2023 election is not going to be a tea party. It will not be business as usual, because Nigerians are at the lowest ebb, and they want people that will provide practical and pragmatic solution to the problem that is confronting all of us. So I will say, if you choose not to come, it is your entitlement, and of course, you may have to bear the consequences of that. And the consequences of that is that in the conversation leading to the general election, MBA will not be in the position to say this is the program of action of this candidate or that candidate, because we have not been availed of that program, and we cannot speak on a program we are not aware of. That is what to make out of it.
Okay, so I like the fact that you have mentioned that, the reason for this, because this is the first time that's happening in the history of your convention. And it's a platform where this candidate will probably showcase themselves, tell what their intentions are for the country. And on the other hand, the MBA would be able to break it down, to members of the public so they can make informed decision ahead of the 2023 elections. But so far, with those who were present, what do you make of the speech in terms of the topic? What did the MBA, deduce from their conversation, their thoughts and intention for the country?
Talk is cheap,
But you say talk is necessary
Yeah,
for the
but
election.
yes, it's necessary, but talk is also cheap. In our political experience, our politicians have always come to say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and we are carried away. And all of them have spoken. They've spoken well, and even though some of them went off point and off key, but I can assure you, MBA is studying their program, is studying their speech, and like we said, it is not MBA that will make the decision for Nigerians. We are studying their speech, and our own duty is to make sure we present the speech in the way they have presented it for Nigerians to understand, so that we will not misrepresent anybody. Of course, I've even read in the paper where Alhaji Abubakar Atiku was trying to clarify some of the points he made there, because people carried it as though he said he's going to the federal university, although he's going to hand over federal university to state universities and all the rest. So that is why we are studying it, so that we'll come out with what they properly said. Because already there is a misconception, and of course I was there when he was speaking. He never made mention of that. What he said is that there is going to be devolution of power, and mention some other things. And especially in that area, I agree with him, because even in Rivers State, where I was the former chairman, in some of my speeches and everything, I have said that if you look at our constitution, the federal government just put several functions looking at the exclusive legislative list. They carry several functions, and they are unable to perform those functions. And the state government are performing those functions. In practical terms, that there is no commissioner of police that will come and will be able to perform without the state government funding. And they say state is a federal decision. Remove your hand from some of all these things, you can devolve it to the federal, to the state government, and we'll make progress. That was the aspect he was speaking, and people misunderstood it. So we will not be in a hurry. We are still studying it, we are digesting it, so that we'll bring out and present to members of the public what they actually said. The letters and the spirit and the intention of what they said.
Okay, so but let's digress a bit, and then we'll come back, to the crux of the matter. This is about, the purpose that the MBA actually exists. Well, of course, we know it's a non-profit organization, it's not a political party, but you exist, for protecting, ensuring that the lives, the rights
promoting the rule
of law, and ensuring that human rights has been also promoted and projected. And one case that's very prominent is the case of Nnamdi Kanu. And we understand that over time, there's been reports that, his right as a human has been violated, has been breached by the government. I'd like to find out the position of the MBA and what the MBA has done, in this case of promoting the rule of law, which would help in our development of democracy. And a case in instance now is the case of Nnamdi Kanu. We see that there are several laws. We also want to talk about another case. I hope I remember that immediately. I'll mention where there's been court injunction, but that has not been respected. The rule of law has constantly been disregarded by this government. So what has the MBA done and been doing to ensure that the rule of law is respected in Nigeria?
Of course, MBA will not fight. Our instrumentality is still the law and the law courts. So whenever there is an infraction of human rights, MBA will fight it, especially using our public interest litigation. And we also know that, like you have talked about Nnamdi Kanu. Now, Nnamdi Kanu is in court, and he has lawyers representing him. There are issues who say this matter is sub judice. When a matter is in court, you don't go about talking about the the matter because there are some comments you make. It becomes a content of court. So he's in court, ventilating his grievances. Now we also have issues where we take up pro bono matters for those whose rights are breached, and maybe they are not in a position to fight for their right, and it comes to the attention of NBA. NBA will usually follow up the matter in our various branches and nationally. I don't know whether you are aware when around Kanu, where somebody was sentenced for the blasphemy something, and the NBA Human Rights took up that action. NBA has been doing what it can do because the courts is where we go when somebody's right is breached to seek redress. Yes, the court is not working the way it ought to work, and NBA is also addressing that. On the 25th of January this year, we'll convoke a justice sector summit, and that was to estray the problems in the justice sector and what we're going to do. And that conversation was taken a little further in this MBA conference. By the grace of God, we will get there.
Okay, but let's also still staying with the issue of human rights. I understand the issue of the courts, proceedings are going on, and so you cannot comment on such issues. But we're just saying that prior to this time, what are the engagements to ensure that the rights of these persons are protected? This is because it's a public figure. But let's also talk about the rights of lawyers in our democracy, particularly the case of human rights, especially with that of a lawyer in Akwa Ibom State, Effiong, who's been imprisoned by the Chief Judge of Akwa Ibom State, Justice Ekere Obot. What's the NBA doing about this?
You know that the president sent the first vice president, who is actually covers human rights in NBA, to get to Akwa Ibom State when that happened. And we must distinguish, with due respect, the issue of Inyobong is a judicial act. Right or wrong? What are we saying? He said he was convicted of contempt. Right or wrong? And in that issue, NBA has intervened, have discussed with the chief judge and everything. But in those type of issue, it is still the court that will have to set aside that contempt. And I know that Inyobong has filed an appeal, and we have our MBA members that are pushing for that. In short, there is an appeal. What delayed the appeal was that the record of proceeding didn't come out on time, but an appeal has been filed in respect of that, since perhaps all the persuasion on the CJ to set aside, because it's a court order. So for you to reverse it, you need to go to court. It will not be by executive fiat or writing of a letter, and the proper procedure is being followed to do that.
Okay, so let's come, a bit closer again, talking about the rule of law, and we understand that this is why your organization actually exists. And do you think that the rule of law has been quite respected? Some people say, the military at some point had respected, the rule of law in Nigeria, but not across the entire. We've seen the executive, especially in this, in this dispensation or in this administration. Well, I'd like to share your thoughts on our respect for the rule of law.
Is not what it ought to be. Let us be frank with ourselves. And I think, I don't know whether it is a carryover of the military mentality and perhaps our African culture. Because rule of law include procedures and processes. And because these procedures and processes move slowly. At times, we are not patient enough to follow the procedure and processes. A government wants to evict people, perhaps they are trading on a place, they are not supposed to trade in that place, and they give a notice. The next thing they come, they evict the people without going to court because they are in a hurry. They want it to be done in 1 week, in 7 days, and if they go to court, it will not be in 1 week or in 7 days. A court gives an order, but because the order does not sit well with the government, they try one way or the other to disobey that court order. The obedience to the rule of law is not as it ought to be. And that is what NBA keep emphasizing and keep addressing.
But why is it the case? Because I mean, you have cases where the executive who should know, who understand, because you say we have the three arms of government. You have the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. And so this arm of government should be in the know. But you have the executive in most cases disobeying outrightly, disobeying the rule of law, not respecting it. And you expect that the executive arm of government understands the dynamics of the three arms of government and understand the dynamics of the rule of law, that it is not a respect of a person. And so we constantly ask, because it's looking like a helpless situation where, we're just going. So who cares? Nobody can really call anybody to order. We're probably waiting for God to come down and correct it. We know that, there are arms that are there to check the excesses or of the other arm of government. And so how do we remedy it ourselves? If you have an organization as the NBA, who's not profit, who's not a political party, it therefore would mean that they have a lot of influence and they have a lot that they can do, even though they cannot go beyond their act of, their powers. So, but what exactly do we now do in this situation where the executive, who should know better, who understands, are the ones breaking the law, not respecting the law?
That is why in MBA, apart from these annual general conferences, we organize conferences. We call this executive to come be in our conferences because what they don't know is that obedience to the rule of law is beneficial to everybody. The rule of might can never be a better option. But you see, because when somebody is in the executive position, governor, president, and he thinks he's above the law, but tomorrow he will need the law. And that is why even the Supreme Court, in the case of Ojukwu and Lagos State government, that appears to be a locus classical in Nigeria on the case of executive lawlessness, said, look, it is in the best interest of the government to obey its own law. Because if you don't obey your own law, it gives impetus to the citizens not to obey. And your power of coercion alone will not be able to enable you maintain peace and order, especially in our own climate, where the number of police is not commensurate to the population of the citizens to police. So if you set a good example as a government that operates by the rule of law, it will cascade down. And that is why, too, apart from the executive, the citizenry, with due respect, the ordinary Nigerians appear to be lawless. When you see the driving on our roads, what happens at the airport where you can, maybe what happens in our supermarket, maybe people are on queue, you just see somebody, those are simple courtesies and everything that ordinarily we should imbibe. When you go out of this country, these same people who do this thing, you see them, they behave well. Why do they behave well? Because the law, the institution is strong. But here, we don't have strong institution. I was saying there is the need for strong institution rather than strong personality, because a strong personality, the government is tenured. If you're succeeding just because of strong personality, the day that personality leaves, that becomes the end of that institution in terms of delivery of the services for which it is set up. So we engage, we will educate, we will persuade that for all of us, operating by the rule of law is good for everybody, the government and the people.
All right. I like the fact that you have cited, the civil part to it, because usually we expect that maybe those who are in the hem of affairs should always be those who respect the law, but as very little as respecting the traffic light and also respecting the queues whenever you have a queue, goes a long way to show and talk about respecting the law. But let's come to the crux of this conversation, which is, the destruction of the registration booth that happened during the conference that's still ongoing. And it's reported that attorneys actually destroyed, the booth registration and carted it away with the bag. What led to this, confusion and this shameful act that it's been described as shameful by, the president himself? He said it was shameful. I also like to know what the content of that bag is. I mean, what exactly is in the bag?
This is what is in the bag.
Are you sure that that's what's in the bag?
You have a jotter, you have a small water bottle, and this pen. That is what is in the bag. There is no dollar, no naira in the bag. It's quite unfortunate what happened, that lawyers could behave that way, but lawyers are a make of the society. The Nigerian society needs redemption. Those lawyers are a product of the Nigerian society. So we cannot divorce that from our society. And of course, yes, I blame them, but I think even the organizers, they have also to take some blame in this situation, because the conference started on a Friday, and that was when the distribution of bags started. But we start conference on Fridays. A lot of people will come in on Sunday. By the time people came in on Sunday, especially those that came in the evening, like Port Harcourt, who had more than 300 members coming from Port Harcourt, got to the conference center about 8 p.m. on a Friday, and none of them was given a bag. I don't know the explanation they gave to them, but later I learned the contractor supplied a substandard bag compared to what has already been shared, and they told them they need to replace it. So they didn't get their bag on Sunday. On Monday, they disrupted one of our sessions because they came protesting, and they assured them, calm down, you'll get the bag, and by 6 p.m. And true to their word, the bags came. The typical Nigerian behavior. They were not ready to follow instructions any longer. They became agitated. It became a survival of the fittest, because they believed that they may not get, despite the assurances of Mr. President that everybody that registered will get a bag. But they never. So
that didn't happen.
While they were trying to address them and everything, of course, they overpowered the people who were manning the situation. And I think this thing, as MBA, we need to rethink our mode of distribution of bag, because this is not our first experience of people coming to conferences and will not have bags.
Bags. Okay. Prince, we have to let it go at this point.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad that you feel safe. It's not like, we started hitting you from the beginning.
No problem. No
Well,
problem.
okay.
We are used to this, and we know Nigerians, we know journalists, when anything happens, they will hype it and everything. But everything, as at yesterday, the distribution of bag at a point, as usual, they were, but by evening, it was not calm and everything. And I'm sure everybody will get their bag. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Prince, we've been speaking with a legal practitioner, Prince Nyekwere. He's a chairman or immediate past chairman of the Port Harcourt branch of the MBA and a member of the National Executive Committee of the MBA. I mean, he's also going to be attending the conference afterwards. I'm sure the conference has not ended, right? So he will be attending the conference. I've been talking about what transpired, at the conference where you had that kind of destruction. He's talked about it, the essence of, the theme for the event, and even the topic of discussion for the presidential candidates. It's been an insightful time. Thank you so much for making our time to be here in our studio this morning. We appreciate you, Prince.
Thank you very much.
And that's the size of it this morning for the first topic. We'll come back after this time out to look at another conversation. Please stay with us.